Alright, so our group is going to be talking about patriarchs.
Genesis chapter 22, verses 1 through 19. And the traditional author of Genesis is Moses, but the true or implied authors are the JEPD, which is the Yahwist, Elohist, Priest, and Deuterus. And the era of the patriarchs was around 1900 BCE, and the original audiences included Hebrews, Israelites, and the Judahites, and the genres of Genesis include legends, epics, and short stories.
So for this passage specifically, it talks about how God is testing Abraham. And during this time period, human sacrifice is actually very common in society. It's well known. It's not a sin like it is in our modern times. So it's unusual to us, but it wasn't unusual to them. And so God tests Abraham and asks Abraham if he could stop the human sacrifices, because God knows everything, and he knows that human sacrifice isn't a morally good thing. But so what Abraham decides to do is he doesn't withhold his son, which means that he doesn't refuse to sacrifice his son. And that act alone foreshadows what God will be doing with his only son, which is Jesus Christ, who sacrifices himself for us. And the question of what does God reveal to us about ourselves is that even though we see around us what is actually normal, considered normal and okay and acceptable, might not actually be in God's eyes. In God's eyes is what we need to focus on. So it's just testing ourselves, just to push ourselves to always just do what's right, and figure out that little cushion of, what does God want us to do. He'll always lead us in the right path. We need to believe in ourselves that we can do that as well. Because for us, at the end, because we have free will, we have to choose if we want to follow God's path. And that's rhetorical interpretation.
Patriarchs, Genesis 22, 1 through 19. How do we respond to God's love? In this passage, Abraham is willing to sacrifice his only son for God. A few ways we can respond to God's love like Abraham did is by always having faith in the Lord, that he knows what is right and wrong for us to do, and he will always show us what is right and wrong, and to trust him with the plan he has for us in this world. Also, when we sometimes skip out on going to Sunday Mass because of too much homework or being too lazy to get out of bed, we should remember the love God has for us and grow strength to get out of bed, or be able to do homework before or after Mass, and give time to God because he shows us unconditional love, and we need to show him the love we have for him back. The liturgical interpretation. Since Abraham was willing to sacrifice his one and only son to God, right before he actually sacrifices his son, he was given a ram to sacrifice. During Mass, we celebrate Jesus' sacrifice for our sins through the Eucharist, which is a sacrifice made at the altar. Personal interpretation. We always have to trust God with the plan he has for us, even if your plan A in life isn't working out. Just remember it's God's plan A for you. And sometimes in life we need to sacrifice things for God because his son, Jesus, sacrificed himself on the cross for our sins.
Alright, so our group is going to talk about Revelations chapter 19, verse 1 through 10. And both the traditional and the implied author is from John the Apostle, but the implied author could be either John the Apostle or like an apostle of John. We're not sure yet. And the main genre is apocalyptic literature, and this comes from the word apocalypse, which also comes from the Greek word apocalypsis, and that literally means revealing or revelation, which hence the title of this group, Revelations. And this was written between 92 and 96 AD, and the text just literally talks about preparing ourselves for what God has shown us and just accepting what He's shown us, and how we just need to be patient because we don't know when what He showed us will happen. So just be patient and trust in God. Also, for the revelations, I wanted to add for the question that says, what does God reveal to us about ourselves? So, like I said, we have to be patient, but I think it's a very common thing for us to be impatient, especially as seniors trying to go off to college. We sometimes, think that some things are bigger and aren't in our control, and we forget that we have God on our side. And that just reveals that how impatient we are and how it not everything works out just all having the world on your shoulders. It's just too much weight. So um, knowing that own strength of knowing to be patient and just knowing that God's always there, that's an immense strength. And I think that is what we all need to learn how to be, to just let go and trust in God and be patient.
The author of Revelation chapter 19, verse 1 through 10 is John the Apostle. And basically what he wanted to point out in the text was that in order to stay in communion with God, it's our responsibility to reject all immoral actions and thoughts or beliefs. And just like a bride or groom, their goal of the relationship is to love each other eternally. And as we, the people, make up the church, we represent Christ's bride. So our goal, just like any other bride or groom, is to keep our relationship with God strong and to love Him with our whole hearts. And so the original audience of this text would be the Christian churches in Asia Minor. And so what John wanted to point out, they interpreted just exactly how he wanted them to know and understand God. So their idea is to reject idolatry and reject all immoral beliefs and actions, and that God is their one and only God, and they're also responsible for keeping the relationship strong with God and to build in a relationship with Him.
Revelation 19, 1 through 10. So, how do we respond to God's love? We respond to God's love by treating others the way we want to be treated and by being proud of people around you and showing the love of other people. And if we show love to others around us, it will be a response to God's love and showing God that we love Him too. And even just being compassionate with everything we do. Everything by doing homework, to telling your parents you love them, by telling your parents that you're proud of them. Even if they don't say that they're proud of you, they really do, but maybe you saying that you're proud of them helps that love and that proudness come out. And showing God love back and the proudness and compassionate side of you is a way to respond to God's love. And the liturgical interpretation is at Mass, a part of Mass that shows the deeper meaning in this passage is by the Apostles' Creed, which states that Jesus will come again to judge the living and the dead. And that's the liturgical interpretation because the revelation to John tells the audience about the second coming. And the personal interpretation is that we need to live in the life of Jesus. Like, we need to be more like Christ and show the love around us to everybody, no matter what, no matter if they might not like you or not. And even asking for forgiveness or clearing hate or any judgments you have about people is another way that this is interpreted personally.